أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to talk about a very simple concept that the Quran gives to us in the final chapter of Surah An-Nas. Now, if we look at this particular surah, we are besieging God through His utmost authority as our God, nurturer, and the one to whom we return. So we're looking at God in three aspects: as the absolute owner, as the one who nurtures mankind to a particular end, and as the one towards whom we naturally tend. So Ilah is the one that forms our direction and becomes our objective. Ilah. Malik is the owner who has absolute authority over us, beyond our own discretion upon ourselves. And Rabb as the one who nurtures us at a physical level, emotional level, psychological level, spiritual level. We're beseeching God at three levels. And these three names are mother of all names. Malik, the absolute owner, absolute authority. Ilah, towards which every being other than God turns to seek its own completion. And Rabb, as that motherly function of God that caters for every facet of need, and we are in a plane of need. Now we are beseeching God with these three mighty names of God. For what? For Him to protect us from the whisper of the hidden entity that repeatedly whispers within our hearts. We ask, why are we beseeching God in such a grand manner from something that is quite ordinary, that is something very little in our minds, the waswasa of the shaitan? It just emphasizes that there is no such thing as waswasa being something minor. It is something quite major. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never asked us to besiege Him in the whole of the Quran as He does in the final surah. What that shows is that the waswasa of the khannas is something that is defeating the objective of our existence. And hence we need God not only as God, but God as Lord, as the owner, as the one towards whom everything turns. God in the fullness of God's existence to assist us at that level. That just emphasizes the importance of what we are saying, and we need to become open to this and become aware of what we are saying. And we also need to understand that this khannas is the biggest pitfall and possibly the means for our ruin and destruction. So let's go in there for a moment. When we look at this notion of khannas, we find that these are thoughts which are distracting, or emotions that are turbulent. And if we analyze it further, we will see that these thoughts and these emotions are forever surrounding us at all points. And this is what Allah is saying in the surah, Khannas, the hidden entity that is often inspiring or whispering or bringing about internal upheaval or distractions. And if we look at our lives, if we can analyze a mere day, we will see actually that in that day, we were only ourselves awoken to the truth, as the truth stands for only a portion of the day or a few minutes. The rest of that day was consumed in ambitious thoughts, or in thoughts that take us away from the present and the reality that is there, or rest of them were moments in which emotions were grabbing us from within, seizing us and taking us away from present. And all in all, in 24 hours, we only spent a few minutes in growing. We were only attentive for a few minutes, and that is possibly when we were in salah or in sajda, or for a moment when we did tasbih. Only those few moments were we really alive. The rest of the 24 hours was just wasted. If we analyze it, we will see that we are wholly at the mercy of these thoughts that we can't control and we are conditioned to think. Or these emotions that just seem to pop up into our souls or in the subconscious, and they are feeding the conscious mind, and we are not even alive. We are not even awake. It is a person who is sleeping whilst being awake. No wonder Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they are like the cattle, but worst off. Because at least the cattle knows no better. But human being to become robotic and being moved away from the present shows that something terribly has gone wrong, because what happens is that we lose an opportunity to grow. And that time that is gone becomes a debt that we have to pay back to God. And hence, it is a course of self-destruction. So what we say here is, in accordance with this particular verse, that whenever a thought comes into our minds, or an emotion seizes us at that intimate level, our job is to immediately become mindful and let it go. To purge ourselves of it in order to release ourselves once again. To bring ourselves in the present, into the world of the living. Into attentiveness and mindfulness that I am here right now. Now, I'm going to finish with this particular thought. If we can understand life as living in the present for the now, then in that case, what we need to understand is that everything that happens to us is a mere distraction from the present, and that is the way our natures are, our material constitution. So let us say this: if somebody were to annoy me, that annoyance could penetrate within my mind and within my emotional self. It can annoy me to an extent that I waste hours after that in that state of annoyance. My mind is constantly thinking about that because I've been so rattled. On the other hand, I can let it go immediately and spring back into the present and begin to live and begin to evolve in the present. Or somebody might just wave a golden carrot in front of us and we start thinking and aspiring. In the future, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. Instead of that, we can just take that thought, move it away and say, no, I want to be in the present. And I want to substantively grow within the present. So what happens there is that the present becomes a great opportunity. And we are not distracted from growth. Whatever is happening in the present is an opportunity for us to perform even better. Now it takes a lifetime to decondition ourselves and to uncondition ourselves from our habits formed from the cradle and from indoctrination. But it has to start somewhere. Look at this pitiful end to the majority of us. When we begin to breathe our last, that particular moment comes as a shock, doesn't it? We are baffled, bewildered, confused. The world for which we have been striving begins to fade away. The world that was the real world begins to appear. At that point comes a great regret. When we experience this, we experience this. If we don't experience it, then we read it in the words of the Prophet, the Quran, the Imams. That at that point we say, oh dear, I've wasted it. God was the one who mattered, and I spent a lifetime in a delusional world. So this particular surah of the Quran emphasizes to us and brings to mind this particular notion that the world is a world of opportunities. Not the opportunities in the way that we are seeing, but opportunity to substantively grow towards Allah in godliness by being in the present. What that requires is for us to engage in a process of constantly purging ourselves from impulsive behavior, from external impetuses, from thoughts, from emotions, to liberate ourselves and to free ourselves at every moment. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-'asr inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilu s-salihat wa tawasaw bil-haqq wa tawasaw bis-sabr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was at Hajj this year, alhamdulillah, yet again, and was reflecting on some of the aspects of Hajj. Now the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is He uses 3 verses in the Quran to talk about the house of God. And He does not talk about the house of God as the house of God, but He talks about the house of God as house of mankind. إِنَّ أَوَّلَ بَيْتٍ وُضِعَ لِلنَّاسِ لِلَّذِي بِبَكَّةٍ. The first house placed for mankind is at Bakkah. Yes? مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. Place of retreat for mankind and amnesty. All 3 verses are talking about this house as the house of mankind. I think what we need to begin to realize now and understand is that Islam was never meant to be a religion that contends against other religions. If Islam has become such, then it is at a level where it belongs with other religions, and we need to seek an Islam greater than Islam. Because if you look at the Quran, Allah is saying, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالصَّابِئِينَ. In a formalistic way, the people who believe, i.e. those who are Muslims, and the Christians, and the Jews, and the Sabians, amongst them whoever believes in Allah and the last day in righteousness, they will have the reward. So Islam in that way is a religion alongside other religions. But the Islam of the Kaaba seems to be a different reality altogether. It is an Islam that encompasses mankind in its entirety. And maybe these verses are there to awaken us to this greater Islam, to this greater reality that belongs to mankind as a whole, despite their variety and plurality of worship and religion. When I go to that Kaaba, it seems as if we are forced in our human condition to give meaning to something that we don't understand. And it often happens that we have certain truths that are well beyond us. In a scientific language, we can't understand them. So we wrap it up in a religious and a mystical language. That we go around the Kaaba because of this, Safa and Marwa because of this, because we don't really understand the existential values that are there. So we have to give it some spiritual meaning. But I think the time is here now for us to reflect beyond religion. I'm talking about the formalistic religion, beyond mysticism, beyond giving things meaning, to say actually there must be something else going on. And I need to be available. And until and unless we are not available, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not part with these beautiful meanings. Maybe Hajj is an invitation to a greater religion, the religion of religion. A religion that was supposed to take birth through a variety of religion, sharing their commonalities, their common spirituality, their common morality, their common understanding of world, their outlooks, and to give birth to that noble state of Islam that Abraham practiced, Moses practiced, Nuh practiced, Asbat practiced, Yaqub practiced, Rasulullah practiced. That was an Islam beyond Islam. Maybe we need to open up to that reality that is all-encompassing and that embraces humanity, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings as a Khalifa regardless of their persuasion and their religion. That's the first thing I've noticed, that there is now an awakening that awaits human beings that takes them beyond sectarian tendencies, beyond their bigotry, beyond their different religions, to a pedestal of godly existence where all of them are common. A beautiful humanity. Maybe the time is there now for this awakening. The other thing that I want to share here with you is that even though we hear that the meat slaughtered in Mina is frozen and canned, but if you were to, by the way, a lot of the meat just went to waste in different groups. I firsthand witnessed that this year, 100 carcasses just thrown away because of the intense heat and their inability to then freeze the meat in time, yes? So a lot of meat is going to waste. But if you were to observe these abattoirs and the way they slaughter animals, you will see that there is a pile of 10 sheep. And if you were to look closely, they are still alive. They are bleeding to death and they are screaming. And another one is brought in front of them, just slit and thrown. on the pyre. Now, that's inhumane. Even if the meat is frozen at that point, it's inhumane. Our nobility does not allow us to treat a creature of God in that way. I remind the Muslims of the hadith of the Prophet. An animal was brandished on the nose, a goat, and the Prophet said the owner will be raised in hell for doing this. The Prophet, who could not allow for cruelty to animal to that extent, do you think he would allow for such brutal treatment of animals when they are being given in the way of Allah? There has to be full tranquility, a state of spirituality, human nobility when the animal is given with calm intention that, oh Lord, I give this animal as an offering of myself, symbolic offering of myself and my head in your way. You can't just take an animal and just slit its throat and discard it like that. In fact, we need to awaken now at this level that sacrifice should not be performed in Makkah altogether. It should not be performed in Mina at all henceforth. The Muslim Ummah stretches to 4 corners of the world. When Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayhi said, take the Qurbani out of Mina, and the Sahabi insisted that your grandfathers used to be persistent for that Qurbani to be given in Mina, he said, in the times of my grandfather, the Prophet, and Ali Salamullah alayhima, the Hujjaj needed to be sustained in Mina for the 3 days of Ayyamut Tashriq, and hence the meat needed to remain in Mina. Now the community is affluent. There is a lot of meat in Mina. There is no longer need for this meat. Take it out of Mina. By the same logic, we should no longer be sacrificing any animal in Makkah. These animals need to be sacrificed elsewhere in the world. In Africa, in India, in Pakistan, in Iran, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. Wherever there is a need for the consumption of that animal and that meat. In fact, if it was up to me, I would say, maybe we don't even need to sacrifice animals anymore. Maybe we need to give that revenue for other things to help people in the way of Allah. I'm sure that it's not so strange to suggest that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not ordain a practice for the sake of its performance, but there has to be some essence behind it. There has to be some value. Can we truly justify, the way we are raising animals these days just for the human consumption, can you even justify this unbridled human consumption of meat of animals? I would be all for saying, look, we need to lessen our consumption of meat in the present world. There are 7 billion of us and we just want to consume meat. And we just raise animals for the sake of consumption. This is below human dignity and human nobility. It's not right. We need to control ourselves. We need to think about things again. But especially if we still are adamant that we have to sacrifice animals at the end of Hajj, if we are still adamant about this, let's say, then in that case, we need to offer this sacrifice outside Mina. Trust me, nobody needs this meat in Mina. Even if every group of 200 Hujjaj were to eat only 5, it'll be more than enough for them. They can share in the 5. The 195 should go out of Mina. And I don't think it's so far-fetched to suggest this and for us to begin to think along these lines and create something that is global to tell people that, look, there will be 3 million animals that will be given for the next 1, 2, 3 months of the year. So you don't have to consume animals anywhere. This will be the Hajj animals that will be. Of course, I'm not one for statistics and how things are done, but I'm just saying 3 million is a lot of animals. There's a lot of animals. And we can do quite well with that in the impoverished areas within the world. And I think it's about time, as Hujjaj, we started thinking along those lines. And maybe as individuals, we can opt for saying that, look, my sacrifice will not be done in Mina, it'll be done in X, Y, and Z country. To do the stoning, shave off the heads, or do the taksir, and make a phone call and say, and this tartib as well between the slitting of the throat of the animal and halq, this is not necessary, as we find in this text of the Prophet and Ali ibn Abi Talib, that no, it's quite excusable. There is leverage there to explore these meanings. With that, can we pray Surah Fatiha for all our marhumin? Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin al-Mustafa wa ala Ali al-Murtada wa ala Fatimat al-Zahra wa ala al-Hasan al-Mujtaba wal Hussein al-Shahid bi Karbala وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي وحجة الله بن الحسن القائم المهدي المنتظر. اللهم عجل فرج وسهل مخرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.